day everyone, welcome to Math with Teacher Justin. On today's topic, we're going to apply factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping is applicable for polynomials with 4 or more terms. Now, commonly we use this if we cannot see a common factor to all the terms. And then we're going to apply factoring by grouping in order for us to identify or to factor a given polynomial. So I'm going to show you an example on how to factor by grouping.
Okay, let's have an example. For example, we have ax plus ay plus bx plus by. First thing that we need to do is to identify if we have a common factor. So looking at each term, okay, looking at all the terms, we do not have any common factor. So what we need to do is to apply factoring by grouping. Since we have 4 or more terms, we can apply factoring by grouping. So first thing that we need to do is to group them by pair. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms, okay, and I'm going to group the third and the fourth term. Ayan. Okay. Then after that, I'm going to have 2 groupings. Now, if you can observe, the first group, they have a common factor. Okay? What's the common factor of the first group? That is A. And for the second group naman, we have B. So, the next step that we need to do is to factor each group. So, the common factor of the first group is A. Okay? And then, the remaining factor will be X plus y. And then for the second group, the common factor is b, and the other factor will be, we're going to factor out b, so the remaining factor will be x plus y. Now, what can you observe? We can observe that they have a common factor, which is x plus y. And knowing that they both have x plus y, we can now factor out x plus y. So factor out, or applying common monomial factor, we can factor out x plus y, factoring out x plus y, okay, and the remaining factor will be a plus b. So our final answer, or the factor of our given, will be equal to the quantity of x plus y times a plus b. So this will be our final answer. Okay, let's have another example. For example, we have 4x cubed minus 12x squared minus x plus 3. Now, first thing that we need to do is for us to identify if we have a common factor for each term. So do we have a common factor that you can see? So since wala, or since we do not have any common factor, we can now proceed to identifying the number of terms. Now that we have 4 terms, we can apply factoring by grouping. So we will group them by pairs. I have the first 2 groups, okay, and the second group, okay. Now, if you can observe, I included the negative sign. Okay, that will be part of the second group. Now, since I included the negative sign in our second group, I will add the addition symbol in between the 2 groups, just for us not to think that it is already factored. Okay, the operation between the 2 groups will still be addition. Please take note of that. Next is we're going to identify whether we have a common factor for each groupings. So for the first group, do we have a common factor? That common factor is 4x squared. That's the first group. Okay, now we factor out 4x squared in our first group, and the remaining factors will be x minus 3. Okay, now we have addition symbol here. Okay, let's focus on the second group. Please take note that the first term should always be positive. Okay? Knowing that our first term in our second group is negative, we can factor out -1. Okay? So we can still remove negative 1 in our group. Okay? Yeah, we need to factor out the negative 1 so that our first term for our second group will be positive. Okay? So factoring out negative 1, we will have x minus 3. Okay. Now, what can you observe? They have a common factor, which is x minus 3. And in our rule, we must factor out their common factor, which is x minus 3. So we factor out x minus 3. So we will have x minus 3 times the remaining. Okay, so we will remove all x minus 3. Okay, ano yung matitira? What is left in our expression? We'll have 4x squared. Since we have plus minus here, positive times negative, we will have negative 1. So that will be our final answer. Okay, let's have another example. For example, we have 2x plus mx minus 2y minus my. So in this case, we're going to identify whether they have a common factor. So do you think they have a common factor? If the answer is no, then we proceed to our next step. So since they don't have a common factor, we need to proceed to our next step to identify the number of terms. Knowing that we have 4 terms, we can apply factoring by grouping. So we can group them. Again, you can rearrange them or you can stick to the original given. So here in this case, I'm going to stick to my original given. So I'm going to group the first and the second, the third and the fourth. Take note, I included the negative sign because that is part of that term, negative 2y. So please take note, if you have a negative third term, you need to include it in your grouping symbol. Now, please take note, these two groups is being added. Okay, so it's not multiplication, it's still addition. So please include the addition symbol in the middle of the two groups. Okay, we need to factor each group. So for the first group, we have a greatest common factor of x. So first group, we have our greatest common factor x, and we need to factor it out and divide the terms by the greatest common factor. So the remaining terms will be 2 plus m. Okay, we need to copy the addition symbol. Okay, now take note, we have negative 2y and negative my. What's the greatest common factor? Since they are both negative and we need to have a positive first term in this group, we need to factor out the negative sign. And also, we also need to include the common factor, which is y. So we need to factor out negative 1 and y. So we can also multiply them. The remaining factor will be positive 2 plus m. Now we have a common factor, which is 2 plus m and 2 plus m. Okay, we need to factor out 2 plus m. Okay, so 2 plus m. And then the remaining factor will be x. Okay, positive times negative will be negative. Negative 1 times y, that will be negative y. So our final answer will be the quantity of 2 plus m times the quantity of x minus y. And that will be our final answer.
Now that you know how to factor polynomials by grouping, it's your turn to try it. Please click the link in our description box in order for you to practice your skills in factoring polynomials. That's it for today. Again, I'm Teacher Justin. Goodbye, God bless, and stay safe. See you on my next video.